Hey everybody, what do you say? JGA59, Gannon here, coming at you with another video. This Memorial Day weekend, I would like to feature two complete sets I have that commemorate the life of President Kennedy. Both sets came out in 1964, and the one on the left you see here was issued by Topps, and there's 77 cards in the set. And the one you see on the right is a 64 card set issued by a company called Rosan, Rosan. Another reason why I wanted to do this video today is because President Kennedy's birthday is coming up, which is on May 29th. He would be 108 years old this May 29th. And of course, he was assassinated back on November 22nd, 1963, when he was only 46 years old. I'm not going to show every card from the set, but basically the sets show, there are a lot of profiles of President Kennedy. There are pictures of him with his colleagues, other politicians and leaders, his family, and what I'll do is I'll move the Rosen set out for a minute, and I'll just very quickly, fan out the binder pages of the top set here to give you an idea of what some of the pictures look like. And then I'm going to take out some of my favorite pictures, and we'll talk about them for a minute. You get an idea of what these cards look like. And yeah, let's do the same with the Rosen set. Okay, bear with me a moment. Yeah. I remember as a kid, I had one of these cards. Yeah, it was this card of President Kennedy on a submarine. I actually had this card back in 1964. That's the only card I remember. So, what we'll do is I'll stop the camera for a second, and I'll just take out a few cards, and we'll look at them together. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, we're ready to go again. The first two cards I'm going to show come from the Rosen set, and this one shows President Kennedy when he was in his mid-20s, and when he was a lieutenant in the Navy. He was the commander, actually, of a boat which was called the Patrol Torpedo Boat. And some of you may have heard the story about the boat he commanded, called the PT-109. And there's a famous story. Actually, here's a picture of him in the PT-109. And PT boats were small, agile boats. They were about 80 feet long, 20 feet wide. They were armed with torpedoes, machine guns, rockets, and mortars, and they were designed to engage with the enemy, larger ships, tankers, and what else? Transports, even destroyers. And they worked together in groups, squadrons, and it was on the night of August 1st, 1943, Kennedy was deployed in the area called the Solomon Islands in the Pacific, off the coast of Australia. And it was a very dark night, and They were, they were there to, intercept, any ships or convoys that were coming through. And a Japanese convoy came through, and most of the PT boats used all their ammunition, and they were called back to the base. But Kennedy and two other boats, Kennedy's boat, the PT-109, and two other boats had not used all their ammunition, and they were called on to stay in the area. And then about 2:30 in the morning or so, on August 2nd, the Kennedy's boat was surprised by a Japanese destroyer, which rammed it and cut the boat in half. Two men were killed instantly, and there was enough of the boat, the wreckage still afloat, that Kennedy and the other crew members swam to it, stayed on it, I believe, overnight, and then, the next morning they had to abandon it, and they swam 3.5 miles to a nearby island. Kennedy even had to tow one of his crew members who was wounded, pulling it. Probably had a life. Yeah, he had a life jacket on, this crew member, and he pulled him, by the strap. It took several days for them finally to be rescued, but through sheer grit and determination, most of the crew survived, and Kennedy here in the right, you can see he's wearing a medal, and this was the Navy Marine Corps medal that was awarded to him for his heroism and his bravery. He was also injured in the incident. He had back troubles previous to this, but they were exacerbated by the incident, and he underwent surgery in 1944 and later in 1954. And here's a picture from the top set now of Jackie accompanying then Senator Kennedy to the hospital, where he underwent another operation, which was largely successful. However, he had back pain still all of his life. Let's see, just to show you the back of the card. I'll show you the back of the Rosan card too, but this is the back of the Topps card, and it says, Senator John Kennedy hobbles on crutches on his way to undergo an operation for an old war injury. Mr. Kennedy has been on crutches for 3 months. So, something really had to be done at that point, because he wasn't able to walk anymore. And again, the operation proved a success. And if you look on the back this is what the back of the Rosan cards look like. And it says, War Hero. Lieutenant John F. Kennedy is shown wearing the Navy Marine Corps medal he won for gallantry in action. While commanding a PT boat, a Japanese destroyer rammed and cut his boat in two. He showed disregard for his personal safety by swimming in shark-infested waters to save members of his crew. This is a picture of Senator Kennedy and his wife Jacqueline on the steps of the Capitol that was taken shortly after the surgery. And this next card shows then Vice President Richard Nixon on the left, and John F. Kennedy, senator then from Massachusetts, in one of their 4 debates that they had in 1960 when they both ran for president. Of course, John F. Kennedy won the election, and Richard Nixon later won the 1968 election. The next card shows President-elect John F. Kennedy with the outgoing President Dwight Eisenhower on the day of President Kennedy's inauguration. And the next few cards I'm just going to show, they're just nice cards. This is, probably, what does the card say? this was after the famous Cuban Missile Crisis. At a news conference, President Kennedy tells reporters that Soviet forces have been steadily leaving Cuba. President Kennedy gave many press conferences. He was known as the first television president. He's very photogenic, very articulate, very witty, and reporters called his press conferences the best matinee in town. And here's another picture, a card showing President Kennedy at a press conference. And here are a few pictures of John F. Kennedy with his family. Here he is with his wife, Jackie. You know, John F. Kennedy, he loved to sail, and this is a picture taken off the coast of Hyannisport in Cape Cod. And then you have some nice pictures of, well, in this one, they were visiting a battlefield, the battlefield, I believe, at Gettysburg. Yeah, the family tours the Civil War battlefield in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I just like it. It's casual. He's behind the wheel of the car. And there's his wife, Jacqueline, with their daughter, Caroline. And I love this picture, which shows Jacqueline reading to Caroline. And I used to love to read to my kids when they were younger. And yeah, so this card is particularly special to me. And this last, well, not last, we're almost through. This picture shows the Kennedy family either on their way or coming back from church. And here you can see John F. Kennedy's son, John F. Kennedy Jr., holding his mother's hand. And then there are just a couple of nice pictures here. There's a really nice picture of John F. Kennedy, probably receiving an honorary degree. Another one I think is really nice. John F. Kennedy definitely had a lot of style. And the last picture that I'm going to show you is of John F. Kennedy throwing a ball out at a baseball game. It says that it's opening day of the baseball season, and President Kennedy tosses out the first ball before a Washington Senators ball game gets underway. All right, and here we're going to segue into, I took some pictures off the internet, and it shows President Kennedy interacting with some baseball players. Here's a great picture taken of President Kennedy shaking Luis Aparicio's hand, the great shortstop from Venezuela. I believe this was the 1962 All-Star game. I don't know if they had two of them that year, but I believe this is 1962. It's a great picture. And there's a picture here of President Kennedy shaking Stan Musial's hand. There's a really great story about how when President Kennedy was running for president, he was campaigning, and he happened to see Stan Musial standing outside, I believe, a hotel. So he came up to him and introduced himself. Musial said he knew him. And, Kennedy at the time was 43, and Musial probably would have been, 39. No, he probably would have been 40 that year, 1960, because Musial was born in 1920, Kennedy was born in 1917. So Kennedy was 43, Musial was 40, and John F. Kennedy said something to the effect, well, they're all saying I'm too young to be president, and you're too old to be playing baseball, so let's see if we can fool them, and or something to that effect. And, and Actually, what happened was President Kennedy invited Stan Musial and his family to the White House the next day, and they took this beautiful picture. Here's another nice picture of Roger Maris with President Kennedy. Roger Maris was at the White House in his capacity as National Campaign Co-Chairman for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. And while he was there, President Kennedy asked him for his autograph. Well, here's a picture of, I would have to imagine, well, President Kennedy, this would be an opening day. You see the Senators player. And in that, Kennedy was president, 61, 62, 63. This team would be the expansion Washington Senators. If you remember, the old Washington Senators moved out of Washington and became the Minnesota Twins. The Los Angeles Angels were also created that year. That was 1961. And then there was another expansion team, the Washington Senators. So this is at an opening day. You can see people wearing coats and stuff. And lastly, love this picture. President Kennedy was a fan, and like any other fan, liked to catch a foul ball. I don't know if that one came his way, but he was trying. Again, I wanted to feature these sets because, again, it's the Memorial Day weekend, and President Kennedy did serve his country, and he was a war hero. And of course, this weekend we want to recognize and remember those American men and women who gave their lives in defense of our country. And I feel President Kennedy was a great president, and another reason why I wanted to talk about him today was because I believe he truly believed in peace. And what I'd like to do very quickly is read a couple of quotes from a famous speech he gave on June 10th, 1963, where he talked about peace. And he said, "What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana enforced on the world by American weapons of war, not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I'm talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for their children. Not peace, merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time." And then later in the speech he said, "From the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal." So, I think those are timeless words, and something that we should remember not just on Memorial Day, but every day. So that's what I wanted to bring to you guys, to everybody out there today. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.